packet. So without further ado, we will take up the minutes first. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the minutes? Okay. Anybody need more time? Do I have a motion? Okay, Ian moves. Any seconds?
Second.
Nancy seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Okay, so we have the minutes today. All right, I'm going to turn it over now to, I believe it's Stansfield who's going to start off. Would you like to take one?
I think we were going to give a little summary introduction and just where we are.
And you have to talk a little bit about the last meeting.
Yes. So, reminder of the large scale, all the moving parts. Now the Cypress Field design team has been brought on. So we, as we mentioned in the earlier meeting, we just had our first coordination just across the street with them to understand where and what are some of the drivers on that project. Obviously, it's early for them, but it was a good dialogue, and so now we have an open channel. I've flipped all these upside down because, so they're not organized towards north, because this is how everyone approaches and sees them. And I realized everyone was looking at them upside down and thinking the back of the building was the entry. So it's a funny little thing. So this is coming, the Cypress building, and we're looking now at how the station interface and how that grade crossing from the field across Tappan interfaces with that. Parking was certainly brought up in the earlier meeting, and the extent to how many spaces we need versus increasing the plaza area, and the kind of cross flow of commuters onto the station itself. So that's something that we now need to focus and get back. There are certainly questions to go back to the MBTA with, but there will also be some coordination and design with the Cypress Field team, as well as exactly what are all the requirements for parking to replace. Right now, this is still the main entry point, straight off facing the field. We also have had a lot of discussions about refining the design along Tappan Street and what the extent of improvements. I think it came up in the earlier meetings, the blue bikes being closer to the station, whether the blue bike station that's in front of the gym remains there or shifts closer to the station, and what's in front of the gym then becomes more seating or something to that effect. So there's a kind of whole discussion about that, along with the traffic calming along Tappan Street. They could be part of the language of what that layering is. So so it's more thinking of this holistically along that entire stretch of Tappan with what we now know from the MBTA.
Eric, I'll just chime in there. Maybe John, I could put you on since we have met with Parks and Open Space.
Yes.
Talk about the street edge of those conversations. In terms of details.
Yep.
First design review committee meeting, the cost that and the architect for Cypress was there. And people were obviously concerned about the way that you cross Cypress Field and then you need to drive down and go over to the entrance to the school. And people put their thoughts, their brains together to try to figure it out. Problem with moving the path down Cypress Field is it doesn't leave you enough room for the soccer field. And we have so few fields in town. This is one we very much need. So we probably will not be able to use the path on the field. Everyone could see that was an important aspect. So that's why it's there. It's not to frustrate people. It's not to make them walk 5 minutes or 10 feet more. this need to have a properly sized soccer field.
No, I think you're right. So when we met last time, I could see that there was just the one entrance to the right. I knew there was going to be pushback to that being a street path, and that's why I mentioned it too last time we were together. And no, I think it's pretty clear that if you were to put a path coming from Davis Avenue across, you'd be going right on the other side of that softball diamond that's on the left. So you're really going to be cutting it, stopping up that field. So it doesn't make sense on the field side, and I think that we're going to have a nice safe entrance somewhere with the crossing point where it's maybe not on the curve, but you know it's going to be some thinking and some work with engineering about how to make that a nice crossing there between the park and the T-stop, the school.
I'll just say one other thing on this, which I said in the earlier session, but I don't know if everybody was here. I mean, when we first talked about this, some of us had potentially a quixotic dream that that entire space would be a plaza for people between the UA building and the new Cypress building, that we would actually complete the streetscape. That was back when we were talking about parking underneath 111 Cypress. When that got too expensive and we didn't do that, we just sort of...
Wait just a second. It's also, it's not only expensive, but also because there are a number of easements and other things running underneath that building that we cannot dig down into.
I'm not talking about today.
Oh, you mean
on the 111 Cypress. Oh, yeah. Right, so there's a bunch of problems. We couldn't put parking under 111 Cypress, and so we left the spots there. I guess if we are rethinking this, just as one individual, I would like to put back on the table the notion of more seriously looking at how many spaces do we need rather than how many can we take away, because I'm very interested in that. And where else can the cars go? And it would require a conversation with the transportation board. It would require a conversation about on-street permits. It would require a conversation about distance. And there's lots of conversations it would require. But if we're here, I just want to put that back on the table.
And I agree with that. And I also think a lot of the comments from the last hour were, I think, great, but they also sometimes point in different directions, right, in terms of we've talked about before my concern about having the access to the TV being too close to the congregation of 13 and 14-year-olds who are largely going to be using that building. And so if we can have a larger plaza area, we can have more space for commuters to congregate, for shelter, and also keep that space a little bit separated from the areas where students might congregate.
Yeah, and I think it's also been pointed out, though, that throughout town there are many, many places where students cross T-tracks, the D line, the C line, the B line, and our students congregate near T-tracks a lot. And so just how do we balance that? I think is important.
So here's my question. It seems to be a widespread sentiment that, at least for the 14 town spaces in front of the T station, those are to be looked at. Exactly what is the process by which we are going to ask our consultants to look at that? Is that drawing a schematic and then putting it in front of the school committee and saying, can you give up these 14 surface spaces for your teachers?
We'll give up or do something else. I think there's a conversation with the transportation board about, I mean, for a long time there was just a moratorium on more on-street permits. And when there was a moratorium, our teachers have to park somewhere, right? So when they drive in, if they're driving.
The school is the client.
Yeah.
Is the school directing us to look for an alternative spaces for teachers other than these 14 spaces? Is that the direction we're getting from the school?
I don't see any harm in looking at it. I'm not sure where everyone else is on school committee. I'm on individual. And again, it would require a lot of other people to weigh in, like the transportation board and our teachers and lots of people, but I don't see any harm in looking at it. Unless somebody thinks that for some reason it's an absolute non-starter and we can't even look at it, I don't see why we can't look at it.
So you're directing wrong.
Well, that would be my, I mean, look, I'm not the only person here.
No, but your suggesting that the committee direct the architect and landscape architect to look at a plaza in that location, come back to us with a plan, and then ask the transportation board if that's reasonable.
Yes, what do you just said?
Is 14 the magic number? Do we know this?
No, I don't, I mean,
We don't, but I think the ski board, there's many conflicting
Right.
interests, but I think they want to improve the people that use the T as well. So I think they would afford to schematic design on some form of enlarged plaza.
right. I mean, for
Whatever
now, we
that
know,
might be.
right, I mean, we don't, I mean, and it would require, especially if we were gonna go for the whole dream, it would require the MBTA to say they don't need those spaces. We haven't heard them say that. So I mean, there are a lot of conversations that I think.
I have.
Oh, you've heard them say?
They need those spaces.
Do the, oh, right, okay, so we have never asked, right?
We're really focusing on the 14 town spaces.
So, as we started, yeah.
Teacher part.
Raise those, please, no, yes.
So do we need a motion to direct?
Why?
Okay.
So it'll be looked at, there'll be some drawings made of this enlarged, make it safe.
You guys get it?
We get it.
Done.
She's on it.
She's already got a plan.
Yes.
Yes.
We will look at a plaza.
Okay.
And you're also going to look at the other piece. I mean, I did not summarize everything, but you mentioned most of it, Eric. I mean, about the fencing and about the,
Yep.
you know, entrances at multiple ends of the plaza, whether there's, you know, cover shelter, there were a number of things in there, so we'll summarize those.
Yes. And there are some very technical things about how the T stops currently not in the same spot that I am presuming in a new station they solve, but we need to hear them say that. So there's a lot of kind of aspects to that list that we can now take back and organize.
We did have a representative from the city. That's my counsel. I think the city makes very good comments.
That was good.
But it is nice that the design team brings to our design team and discuss the technical aspects.
On the STEM science wing, there's no major revisions that have happened to date. We had our last sessions, see Ed back here, and we've been solving the technical problems of how this gets built and where steel goes and where shafts go and to support it all, but we have not submitted anything in there as a result of that, which is the good news. And there's still the front porch idea along facing Greenough Street. I think there's been a fair amount of discussion actually on how the Tappan Gym facility becomes one and how to solve for that. Again, I think the programmatic elements are still exactly where we left them. If anything, it's much more about some of the technical solutions to such crazy things and I say this for Ray, sprinklering the pool, and how you actually do that over the water, as well as what the structures and how we tie into the existing. So there's been nope, and there's no ability to sign, please everyone jump in the pool. So again, the idea of the frontispiece there that actually helps tie some of the buildings together and soften that.
Just because someone's going to ask, I mean, do you have any information about when the last time a pool caught on fire in Massachusetts?
I do not.
No, I don't have that, Sue.
I have since
I
the
just want to
daughter.
say I asked.
The daughter who just walked out here is a swimmer. I have been spending a lot of time in pools throughout the winter looking at them and noting that, yes, in fact, most of them are sprinkled.
Can we promise one parking space disappears for the first person who can Google that and get the answer?
Right. But we're not really doing very significant work in the people.
No,
Or making
but
this front-
but as part of improving the whole
Yeah,
thing.
and we're making doors so that you can access the pool area.
yes,
No.
we
It's very limited because we're putting a common front entrance here that triggers the sprinkler
right.
in the building.
Yes,
We did go grasses around the deck, here and here, and then put more seating so that it feels, so if you're in a wheelchair, you feel part of the event.
For particularly events like swim meets, where there's all the way around. With that, just to put in context, the big red line is about where we are on this wonderful bar chart. You have printouts, but what that is more importantly saying, and why the meeting is really the focus of this meeting, is those dark kind of purple-blue bars are construction activities, and we're starting to get close to that. And so Skanska, our construction management partner, is going to talk a little bit about their initial thoughts on how the construction sequence starts to play out and what the impacts are. So just a first thought. So with that, I'll hand it over. I think they're right here.
We can click if you want to stand there and point us.
He's got a driver.
Cursor visible up there?
Yes, if you.
Perfect.
It pops up.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Gear. I'm the superintendent for Skanska. I'm in charge of the field work for the project. Pete Roach, senior project manager for Skanska. Pete is in charge of everything else.
I pushed the paper.
This just so everybody knows, this logistics plan that I'm about to present is essentially the last logistics plan that we put together. We've got input from the last group, and we've tuned the plan up a little bit. We've added some more detail in some areas, and took into account some other measures for some extra level of safety. So I'm going to walk everybody through the logistics. We'll go through each area of the building in a little bit of detail, show how we're moving through the project, how we're controlling traffic, and so when we do put our logistics plan together, we don't do that plan or create that plan in a vacuum. We try to put as much input as we possibly can. We have some general items that we follow. Safety is obviously our first top priority. Students, staff, and public. That our logistics plan is based around that item, safety being number one. Separation from construction activity, that's basically how we do it. We have to separate the public, the students, and the staff from our construction areas at all times. And we do that with a series of temporary walls. When I get into some of the interior sequencing, I'll talk about some temporary walls. On the exterior of the building, obviously we'll have fencing, gates, signage, crosswalks, temporary barriers to sort of channel the pedestrians into different areas, keep them out of areas that they should be in. Occupied building activity, again, when we get into that sequence of the existing building and the tap-in, particularly in the tap-in, we'll talk about temporary walls and some means of egress and how getting them out of buildings during construction. Traffic controls, deliveries, we'll talk about that a little bit. Obviously, traffic is a top priority here at Brookline. We're aware of that. We've got some ideas and some plans in place to control that. Deliveries. I'll show you the delivery route that we have proposed. We've got a couple of delivery routes, mainly off of Route 9. We're going to try to keep all of our deliveries off of Route 9, feed everything off of Route 9 into the two sites. Work sequence and durations, obviously we'll get into that. I'll talk about a lot of detail about dates, when the school is going to be occupied, when the kids are going to come back to school, when they leave, what they're going to see when they come back, what's going to happen while they're gone, that type of stuff. So we get the first slide. This is our traffic plan, if you will. Basically, it's showing how we're getting in and out of the site. We've got Project A, which is a 111 Cypress project. Project B is the new STEM building and the Tappan gym, and then the last phase would be the renovation of the third floor. But we're calling all of that Project B. Project A is on Cypress. So Route 9 is here. We've got this blue path indicated up off of Washington Street. That's for our large deliveries, 50 both Project A and Project B. Large deliveries being anything oversized that we can't get in the gate under normal driving conditions. So those would be large trailer loads of steel, precast. I'll talk about precast in a little bit when we get into the Park A building. So those are large loads that we can't really maneuver on a high turn radius off of Route 9. So we've created that alternate route, if you will, for both projects. So we come up Washington, kind of turn down Tappan. For Project B, we go up Davis. Obviously, there's traffic restrictions in front of the school. We'll coordinate with the school as far as when we can actually come down Davis. Obviously, it won't be in the morning, won't be in the afternoon, but we'll sequence those deliveries for Project B. Project A, we come down, continue down to Cypress, and return into the site on Project A. When we get into the next couple of slides, I'll show these dates here in a little bit more detail, so we'll get an idea what the crosswalks look like, what the sidewalk closures look like in there. This is just generally showing the traffic pattern. For Project B, our main delivery route would be here, down Sumner off of Route 9, and we would continue down here to at the intersection of Green, take the left into the site, cross Tappan into the site, and we've got a 2-gate system set up there, so we drive in one gate, unload, and then drive out the other gate. Again, when we get to the 3D detail, we'll see this in a little bit more detail, and it would be easier to understand. These here are just our muster points that we identified as potential muster points. For our safety plan requires us to muster in case the building has to get evacuated for whatever reason. We created a couple of muster points and an alternate muster point. When we get into the level of detail, when we get close to the large construction, we'll obviously keep clear of what are the schools muster point evacuation point out. So we created somewhat of a spot for that too.
Could you explain the muster point?
So
It's a place to meet?
It's just a gathering point. If we have to evacuate the building for some strange reason, whether it be an incident or something unfortunate that happens, when we have to evacuate our crews, we have to establish a point where we get a head count, make sure
It's not fenced off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, yes, just a spot.
Yep.
The guys know, okay, I gotta go to the muster.
And much like the school does, we may run drills just to practice that as well.
So that's the so we've got 6 different phases of the project. What I tried to do is I tried to break down the project into 6 main phases. You're going to see as I get into some of the details, some of those phases are going to overlap because the time frame on some of the buildings, for example, constructing the new Tappan building and Cypress building, those are just going to run for about 16, 18 months or so. So you're going to continually see those in the slides for the next 5 phases. So this is our phase 1. Really a lot of activity, but I'm going to start in this corner up here.
Hey Mike, can we just give a quick overview of the bottom bar so everyone understands what they're looking at?
Yeah, so
There.
there's a couple of things happening on the bottom bar. What I tried to show is this red bar here. I tried to show that as our peak delivery and peak noise time frame. That's when our deliveries are going to be the most frequent. Start both at some point during this red bar. I think it's in this area here. We're going to have 2 or 3 of the projects going at the same time. So it's going to create the high noise and high traffic. It's a long bar, as you can see. I think it's going to be in the middle somewhere. And then here's our schedule bar here that I tried to identify what's on the screen and this blue bar here as we continue through the slides. You see that blue bar track. So first order of business for this summer is fencing and some enabling it for both the new STEM building and Cypress. So basically what we're going to do on both sites is set up a fence, capture the area, and get rolling on some work. We do have some early activity up in this corner here that we like to get started on while the students are in school. This summer, starting June 3rd, there's a utility corridor that we have to create up in this corner. In order to knock down the building right now, all the utilities not due to existing Roberts rooms, so we have to create a corridor up in this corner to channel the utilities through. So this slide is basically, well, Most of the stuff will happen after the students leave school. Fencing here in Cypress. This fencing, and the next slide, I'll be able to explain the sequence a little bit better about what the students are going to see this June, and what they're going to see when they come back from school. MBTA, we captured the summer, we captured areas down here for the MBTA, start that enabling sequence and stuff moving, and get some of the MBTA equipment around, getting those, getting that tuning stage stuff for their MBTA work. We've got sidewalk closed here on Cypress Street. Sidewalk, important to note here, sidewalk on Green out and Tappan by the Roberts will be closed. And like I said, on the next slide, I'll be able to show those intersections a little bit clearer so you can understand what's happening.
And it's tough to read on here. The color doesn't show up well, but there's we've identified in red temporary crosswalks. So where the construction necessitates taking some of the sidewalks and some partial lanes in the streets, we'll always have signage and temporary crosswalks that will direct pedestrian traffic to the opposite side of the street. And you'll see. You want me to go to that one, Mike?
I just want to mention one thing before I forget. We identified a couple of areas where we're going to request no parking. If you remember on the last slide, I talked about the low-sized delivery route coming on Tappan. We feel that we may have to capture some of these parking spaces to make that turning radius of the site. So we identified some parking here and some parking on this corner that we asked that there be no parking. Just to make sure that we don't have a problem turning the traffic trucks.
Mike, could you also talk about the level of police officers in the
Yeah, we feel that there's a need for a police detail here, which is our gate number 1. Also up here, gate number 4. And then when I jump into that 3D, which is the next slide, we'll see in a little bit more detail. So here we are over at the new Cypress building. This is Tappan here somewhere, So we've created, right now there's an existing sidewalk here, a crosswalk here and here. So we're going to remove those and establish this crosswalk here, and this crosswalk here. Basically what that does is it gets everybody off of this corner, this side of the street, so you get across here. Here's another temporary crosswalk here. So you come out of the building, cross here, and down here, and then go up. Let's put Tappan here if you want. So that early package that I was talking about earlier is right here, the yellow. So we'd like to capture this area June 3rd, so that we can start some of that early enabling and utility corridor stuff happening. That's in the courtyard. It's hard to see here, but it's in the corner of the courtyard. Here's the bridge that connects the Edmund and the Roberts. This path right here will still be open while the students are here in class. This slide also shows some of the activities. This will basically, once this gets set up in the 1st of June, this configuration you see here, this is going to go right to the end of the project. So there's not going to be any changes here as far as fencing, crosswalks, bus drop-off will still remain up here at the front of the existing building. So this configuration you see here will stay until the end of the STEM construction.
Can you talk about setting up the temporary utility redirect, what your activity will be like during the school day?
Sure. So here we've got basically it's an underground tunnel section. It's like a crawl space they call it. So it's basically excavation, concrete work. We've got walls to pour, slab to pour, and then a roof to put on top of it, and that creates the corridor for the utilities that are right now. The utilities come through here to the gas, so it creates a legal bypass.
And that'll start June 3rd?
We're proposing June 3rd, yeah.
Just one note,
Yep.
graduation is June 9th, and the first class right past that, so
Okay.
it's only a couple days.
We'll work on that. Yeah, whatever. Like we're like Pete said earlier, we're guests here, so whatever we'll be as accommodating as we possibly can for things like that.
And we've been working with Hal. He's clearly communicated some of his thoughts around that time frame.
Great.
We'll work it out.
I have no doubt.
Gone, besides graduation, they are no longer in classes at that point. Late May is when they finish, so I know that's one thing he's communicating. Susan's right, we need to figure out graduation.
It's just like a big tradition, they always process right.
That's fine, we can work to undergrad, there's space, something in final.
They will be in June.
The seniors?
The undergrads in June.
Yes, not even that, not right then, but.
A week or so after. Yeah.
So you had mentioned, Susan, that at least somewhere in here, depending on where PD, is going to need some help from PD as far as where the district's the PD stage. That's clearly somewhere in here, we're going to need some help with traffic. The regulations.
Have you coordinated any of this with the police chief?
No, we haven't got that far. We're talking internally about working the kinks out of our plan and make sure we get everything ready before we go to the chief.
We reviewed this a number of times, and it's, we keep thinking about different things. And the graduation is actually a new item that you count.
Seems like every time we review something else pops up, which is what we want. We want to make
That's
sure
exactly what
we want to make sure we get everything included.
And the next step for us here is we wanted to make this presentation. If it's received positively, we take this and we put it in our construction management plan. We'll review that with Hill, Ray, and his team. And if we get their blessing, then it moves on to other departments that it requires approval from before we secure the building permit.
And I think you would just want to communicate Hal and I to high school things, high school students, if there are modifications, which there will be, exactly. Pick up, drop off, where it's all of that information. We'll want to communicate, repeat for at least a month. So that's great. It seems like we're on target for that.
It's just, Susan raised this point, it would be really important and very helpful if you were able to come to the high school and do this presentation for everyone. Again, it's about getting the information out, repeating, but doing it, there's 345 staff at high school, so all really need to get this information.
Let us know when, and we'll be there.
But to your point of like how I would say concrete isn't set until that. I mean, because I would assume that high school faculty will have all kinds of like, what did you think about this? Did you think about that? That we will not think of.
Yep.
So, okay. Just so everybody knows, by the way, this is gonna none of us can read this. This is gonna be on the web in the next day or two. So you're not expecting it, and we'll do some Q&A now after because people are here. But just but people will have a chance to look at this. Okay.
So the other thing I just want to mention, we talked about barriers, physical barriers before when I first got started. We're proposing some barriers around some of these corners to help channel some of the pedestrians to the crosswalks, so there's no chance of anybody cutting the corner from the crosswalk. We've got some of that into the plan. Whether it works or not, we're not quite sure, but we thought it would be a good idea to propose some sort of barrier system to channel people to the right spot.
There's a 3D shot of it right behind Mike where you can see if you're standing on the corner with the Tappan complex behind you, if we put those barriers on the corner, it takes away the human nature to take a shortcut and it forces you to take the temporary crosswalks. Mike introduced this because it's a new layout and we want to make it very literal in terms of the choices that the pedestrians have to take across the street. So with a barrier there, it doesn't leave much to guess.
So it's going to be here.
So is it fair to say that we are actively blocking the desired path line?
The shortcut down through the middle of the intersection.
Unlike the last conversation where we're trying to open up the desired path line, this one we are trying to actively block their desired path line. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Corralling, if you will.
Past the construction site.
The term is cattle shoot.
Yeah, we don't cattle. Well, I'm looking at cattle shoot right now. Okay.
But I think this is an area where that's advantageous. I think that's the...
Yes, keeping kids away from construction site.
I picked up on it. I must have been out there in the morning. That intersection is problematic.
Yeah.
I think that is on first and last station, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I spent some time out here both morning and afternoon just hearing the traffic. Here in Cypress, it's busy. So this is happening in Greenell over at STEM. So the next slide is, let's take a look at Cypress Street. So same thing here. We've got a fence around our site. Here's Cypress. Brinkman's right here, so that's the intersection. Fencing on the site. Again, we've got a 2-gate system set up here that we're hopeful, at least for the smaller loads, we'll be able to get in this gate and then come out of that gate over there, gate 1B, and then come back out to Cypress. The existing crosswalk down here, it's not probably practically shown right, but it's intended to be the crosswalk that's down closest to Route 9. We thought about a crosswalk here, but we were thinking with this box and some of the traffic that stacks up, it really doesn't make sense for a crosswalk here, so we were thinking we would channel people, direct them down to this crosswalk, relax, and come back up.
But there is going to be an officer.
There'll be an officer here too, exactly. Yes.
So maybe we can prevent it.
Again, we set up a proposed temporary barriers here to help channel people, so people come down here, they sort of naturally force down to this crosswalk and then cross safely.
And this is, I see some familiar faces from a meeting that we had in a home on Brinkton. This is in direct response to some of the concerns that were expressed there. I want to emphasize that the construction vehicles that you see here, the gate, is it 1B, Mike, that's on the left-hand side?
Yeah.
Those vehicles will only be able to turn left. They won't go beyond where Brinkton chokes down a little bit to a reduced width, so they'll only turn left and come back out onto Cypress. I heard a lot of concerns at that meeting about this intersection as it exists today, and it becomes more problematic as we introduce construction vehicles. We understand what we're indicating here is not convenient. This is inconvenient. It adds steps to come down to Route 9, cross the street, and come back up. But what it represents is our thought in terms of what is the safest thing for the folks on Brinkton to do.
So another view here with the barriers I was talking about here, which are these barriers here that again we'll propose something I think is a good idea to try to channel people, otherwise people will have a tendency to follow a straight line and just go right across the street. So this is
Can we just create an FAQ around that one? That one's going to be enormously unpopular. So if you really feel like that's an important safety thing for the community to go through, you need to be very clear about that. I mean, safety first, but
yeah,
people are going to hate it.
yeah, I don't think it's going to be that popular. So this is at phase 2. Again, nothing really changes on both gates. We're into full construction over here in the new STEM building. We've got a covered walkway here that I think I talked about earlier. So here we've got a covered walkway. This walkway that is between the admin building and the existing Robbins building, that's going to stay open throughout the whole project. So we propose covering that with a scaffold type of walkway system, so the students and everybody could come out of the courtyard and come up to Greenell Street. So that will always be open. Covered scaffolding, clear path of egress, it will be lit. Lights proposed for ensures dark hours. That'll continue over to the cafeteria building, and make a clear shot for students coming out of the cafeteria when they'll be able to come down to on the front of the admin building and be able to turn left into the admin building or continue up to Greenell. So that'll be a clear path for you guys. It's hard to tell on this because it's not really showing that clearly. It won't be shown on one of the 3Ds a little bit clearer, but there's a temporary stairway over here. That's an egress stairway off of the 3rd floor. When we severed this portion of the building from the admin building on the 3rd floor, we indirectly created a new egress issue. So we had to set up not too late. I think it's showing a little bit better on one than the other. And I didn't really show it, sorry. It's in this corner here. Here's the existing skyway, if you will. So it's up in this corner here. I'll show it better on the next logistics piece.
It's emergency egress only, though. The intent would be that it's never used, but it will be engineered to support a fire egress load, both in terms of the number of students and structural capacity in terms of that weight. Even though it's temporary, it will work as permanent.
I think it comes down the second floor of Dean Street and down by the Metro room.
So that's all going to happen this summer, so when the students come back in the fall, that will be in place. That walkway here will be in place. We'll be well under our way in the way with the interior demo with the Roberts building. This configuration here at the corner will be all set up as the previous slide showed. Same down here, so all that will be set up as students come back to new configuration, both here and at the
And just to be clear, you said well underway with interior demolition, and just so that everyone has the same understanding, that means that demolition of that wing will not be complete when students return to school.
Absolutely, yeah. The main portion of the building, the structure that you normally see just coming down, that's going to happen in late August to late September. That's right. So when we demolish that building, just so everybody knows, we sort of show a crane here, but it's not going to be a crane, it's going to be a hydraulic excavator with a long, super long reach arm. So it's set in this general area, we'll just start clearing the building, back sections, parts, away from the existing building. It's probably going to take about a month, 5 weeks or so to get the building down into a pile, and probably 2 or 3 weeks to get it compliance. Late August to late probably be a week or two. So this is our phase 2. Again, we've got quite a bit of activity here in the STEM building. Over here, we've got foundations on the opposite side of the tracks and the north side of the track. We've got some OCS work happening, which is basically relocating some of the overhead catenary lines that allow us to put a structure over the T. Foundations over here in the main portion of the building is going. Students are back on campus. I put some bullet points down here. Temporary egress and stair, I have like that. Roberts building, drop-off loop is removed. Right now it sits over currently over here. So that drop-off handicap access will be established in front of the school. We've got a handicap ramp to get placed there. That's going to replace this handicap ramp that's over here. Construction at the STEM and Cypress both going simultaneously, so it's going to get this time frame is going to get busy. Like I said before, I think we're probably going to be early. Phase 3. Again, nothing's really changed on the 2 entrances. They're pretty much set. The only thing really different on this slide, we're into the tap and gym right now. We're doing the basement level and the first floor level of the tap and gym. So those are under renovations, and you can see here, like I said before, we've got 3 projects going. We've got STEM, Tappan, Cypress. So this is our peak delivery time. So it's going to get busy with 3 projects.
That's March, April, May, June.
Is Tappan going to be accessible and usable during that time?
Yes, Tappan, we've got a phase plan for Tappan. We're going to close off a portion of the basement level and the first floor level, so that the first floor level, the pool area, will be accessible. Same with the gymnasium areas. So this summer, I don't know if you got on this slide or not, we've got the gymnasium happening summer gymnasium rows. So we're going to knock those out in the summer of 2000.
During this phase, though, access to Tappan remains through the existing main entrance. We haven't taken that out yet. We're just executing the interior renovations in the basement and on the gymnasium side of the first floor.
So this main entrance is still the same. We haven't touched that. You can see that on the next slide when we actually.
So in terms of use of the second floor and third floor gymnasiums, those will be restricted summer of 2020?
We'd like to do the summer of 2020, get those behind us and get them back to use September. Yeah, some of the stuff is repeating, but I won't keep repeating myself. So here we finished the basement level and the first floor of the tap and gym. Now we're taking over the front entrance of the gym for the new lobby addition. So we've got a portion of the sidewalk and a portion of the street closed off here. Basically, we're going to take half the lane of one half of the lane of Captain Street so that we can set up a fence, get a crane in either in the reference steel and get the new lobby constructed. So the existing entrance is closed here with a temporary wall here. We proposed a temporary entrance on the west side of the STEM building with a temporary corridor that you can see here. So that'll get us from the west side of the STEM over on the Sumner side. So,
I'm just trying to figure where in the building you create.
so this corridor right here, it's we're going to have to cut a hole in the wall here.
That's through the fitness center.
It's through the fitness center, but it's not going to separate the fitness center. We're going to be off to one side. There's like
It's a nice hallway that we can use to the wall. You and me both.
And our goal here is to, even though we've taken the main entry on Tappan out of commission, is to return people, although they'll enter the building from a different location, ultimately they get to the same spot that they currently do.
So on this slide, we show the STEM is complete, 2021. That's complete, and we're into the tap and gym right now, and we'll look at the STEM, looking at some interior finishes there. The next slide, you'll see we've got the lobby finished, and you can see here. Now we're into the existing lobby. This little square is actually pretty, it's been a bit of work there. We've got to take the existing roof apart and do some structural work in there. That's why we're proposing that for June to September 2021, which will be the last leg of the project. This phase, the STEM is completed at this phase, and we're over here wrapping up Cypress and Tap and Gym. And we've got some sidewalk work going on. The sidewalk work we're going to do in portions. We're going to take a portion, get this piece here that we've got taken over with temporary fence, get that turned over and start pouring some sidewalks and getting the sidewalks back to use.
Yeah, that's a great point. In this phase, with the gymnastics that have to happen at the main lobby, with the switch over, and we want to get that small area where we were delivering people back to renovated and get that cut over. We have the fire protection work to do in the pool, which is going to require a short shutdown of the pool. We just had a great meeting with the high school operations department prior to this meeting today. We discovered that the pool gets drained annually, so we're going to target the fire protection work just prior to the draining of the pool. Well, they'll drain it first, we'll do our work, then they'll do their maintenance on the pool. And I think it may be that during the time frame that the pool is closed for the fire protection work, we're going to suggest that the Tap and Gym complex is closed so we can finish that lobby renovation as quick as possible, and then return it to service before the school year in 2021.
Can I ask, on the high school operations, you said you met with the high school operations folks about closing the pool. Does the
rec department? Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Who's your director?
I figured. I
Yes,
just wanted to
yes.
clarify that.
Yep. I should have added that they were both in the meeting, and it seemed to be a plan that everyone had buy-in.
That was the second thing I was going to ask is, I'm sure all of this has been thought about, but with the athletics department for the gym closures, et cetera, that Pete Wittenberg knows about all those changes and where he's going to start shuffling people for all of his athletics.
I'll
So,
confirm with Al. I know Al has been working with all the people that use the gym and discussed it, and they understand there is a period, and we're trying to find the perfect period where that is minimal.
So, Tapping Gym entrance is complete here. We're working on the main portion of the existing lobby. So this slide, although you don't see it here, we'll create a couple of access points to the pool and the Tapping Gym area here off of the new entrance. So at this point of the project, the entrance is open, with the exception of the existing lobby is closed for renovations. Fire protection, as Pete mentioned, we've got that targeted for the summer of 2021. We'll dial in the exact date and the exact time for that. Sidewalks, at this point here, we're working on tapping sidewalks. We've got replacing sidewalks with some landscaping and other site work, finished site work activities ahead of this.
As well as the hardscape landscape associated with the streetscapes portion of the project, the tap-in improvements. We talked about widening of the sidewalks, raised crosswalks, and that sort of stuff will start in this phase.
So basics, we're wrapping things up here. We've got that in gym is finished. 111 Cypress is completed at this point. Target site offices, we proposed some site offices over here. I'm not quite sure if that's going to work out. Whatever site offices we have set up will get taken apart. And our parking restrictions that we showed earlier, those will get removed. Won't be those anymore. That's it.
So you guys will keep us abreast of ongoing developments. So we will need to schedule a meeting. Yeah. Is anybody in the audience? Okay, I see.
Susan Bishner. There are a lot of things that you've thought about, but there are a lot of other things that are very practical about those of us who are going to live through the 16 months of hell. And there's sort of no way to. Is there any? I would love to be notified of the peak times of noise, of the peak times of parking restrictions.
Okay.
When my street is going to be closed, I won't have access to my home or be able to get a vehicle in and out. I'm concerned about emergency vehicle access if you're closing down parts of the street. Having once had a house fire, you're always worried. I'm worried about getting your kids out of the school, but I figure that's not my problem. And some practical considerations about parking. Right now, there is no parking on Tappan Street, which is a joke because if you drive by, it's completely parked up, during the restricted times. But where are you going to put your workers? How are you going to keep the students and the parents from taking this parking? How are you going to keep the access available? And whether the parking is going to be available at night after the school work is being done are all really important. Just things that I'm going to need to know down the road.
So what we when we do our projects, we create either a 2 or a 3 week schedule. And in that schedule, we'll talk about any lane closures, shutdowns, parking requirements, and I'm sure once we develop that, Ray and his teams will get, I assume that's going to get distributed to the public. So it'll be probably on the website. We use website information before, so you can check the website, look at our schedule, and do that. So what kind of action? So we'll identify, okay, we're going to be on Tappan Street for 4 hours on this date, this night, and do those up on this date. So all the information we generally keep the public updated in that fashion.
So the more information you can give us, the more lead time you can give us, so we can make plans. Ira and I are planning now on a 16-month vacation.
Sounds wise.
But, you know, it's not entirely practical. You know, there are really times when it's just going to be awful. Let me know. I'll try to deal with it. Thank you.
We'll also, like we are now, we'll be many months in advance with these communications. Like Mike said, the look-aheads will be on a much more frequent basis. I imagine we're going to continue to hold these meetings throughout the course of the project, and we'll also have some more focused meetings for folks that are direct abutters, parents, faculty, staff. Mike and I will be the people sitting on site, so we'll become familiar faces, and hopefully you won't have a problem walking up to us and asking questions throughout the course of the project. I do want to address emergency access. There will always be, we will never impact emergency access, police, fire, ambulance, anything like that, access to both our project site, any of the abutters, any of the surrounding communities. We will ensure that that is always provided as it needs to be.
My concern is not what you provide. My concern is really what the students and the parents take out of the equation. And right now, since there's no enforcement, and I'm not going to call the police department to come clear out Tappan Street because it's a useless point. I mean, it just fills up again, even though there's no parking until after 3. I'm worried that with your added pressure and what the students and parents are now enjoying, that that they're going to be the problem. So I guess enforcement at that point will be necessary.
Susan raised a question which I think we should discuss, and that is the plan for parking for construction work. It's always been a difficult point in the schools, and we just hate because the construction workers and just park anywhere. So can you give us a short synopsis of that?
I can. I don't have a great answer to your question as we stand here tonight. When we proposed on the project, our intent would be that we would locate an off-site parking lot and provide parking to the construction workers and shuttle them to and from. We've exhausted a lot of resource, a lot of calls, a lot of research, and we haven't been successful in locating that space yet. Not to say that we will not continue to look for that space and provide that off-site parking and shuttle service to the workers. I will say we're entirely accustomed to working in an environment like this. In the unforeseen condition that space doesn't become available to us, and we haven't figured out a way to shuttle people to and from a remote parking lot, we have the advantage that we have a public transportation stop on site, and we have tools at our disposal to manage and control workers. I mean, we publish in our contracts and we enforce that there is no parking permitted for construction workers. I know it may be hard to believe, but we work in much more condensed and combined environments than this, and we execute much larger projects in those environments. So I'm confident in our ability to manage that on behalf of the construction project, but we will continue to look for off-site parking, and we've budgeted for the project to be able to do that. But unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for you this evening.
Well, I would suggest that you talk to this guy over here about 2 Brookline Place and figure out.
We've investigated it already, and it's not going to be available for us.
How many spots are you looking for?
We will. What do we think we're going to peak between 150 and 200?
Yeah, we should plan on it.
Wow.
So we're looking at churches, old malls. I mean, you name it. Churches are usually a great option for us when we execute school projects because they have huge parking lots that go unused for the most part during the week. We haven't found that opportunity here. We've looked at, there's not a lot of parking, frankly, in Brookline, so we're looking much further than we typically look for off-site parking. The mall at Chestnut Hill we thought was going to be a great opportunity for us. Unfortunately, the operator there hasn't continued conversations with us about renting parking there. We've gone as far as connections that we have, like the building next door to our office in Boston. PTC just moved in there and they vacated a rather large area with a parking lot and a garage, and we've investigated that. I could go on and on in terms of where we've looked. We're welcome to thoughts if folks are aware of other places. Seriously, we're committed to doing this right for the town, and we'll make the phone calls.
You looked at the old Michigan Villa behind the mall?
I don't think so.
PC owns it now.
Right.
What was it called?
Michigan Villa.
It's a synagogue.
And there's also a church off BFW that I don't remember the name. You know what I mean?
300.
St. Lawrence has it. St. Lawrence Church has a lot on it. It's not too big.
By the way, if you find a place, we might be able to move it.
St. Lawrence Church. St. Mary's is there.
The Dance for the Stars held this event there.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I do. It's right on the corner of VFW and West Rochester.
But the Greek church.
I'll think it.
Yeah, I thought it was the Greek church as well. There's a small daycare associated with it right there.
It is probably worth just looking at the Weaver College parking situation.
Maybe West Roxbury High School. So we go to folks next year.
Oh.
Oh, really?
That's
They have a lot.
Huh. Atlantic College might be another place.
Is there anything up at Newbury?
So if anybody has ideas about parking, please
It's a bunch right there.
think about it and get back to us because we're open to any suggestions.
I
Absolutely.
just want to make one other point just to Susan's point. We do have this ability, and I'm not exactly sure how it works, but like if you sign up with your email address, you can get alerts when, and so if we do that once a week, if anybody's, we just create an alert and it pushes out, so you don't have to go to the website, but like every, Sunday evening, it automatically pushes out, here's what's happening for the next 2 weeks, in a rolling 2-week look ahead. That might be useful. I don't know, people seem to like that.
We did an occupied school with the East School, much smaller scale, but we used the listserv. It was a little difficult, but my good friend went back here, will handle it for us. No, we'll figure it out. In all seriousness, we've been talking about how to get it finished out.
Our Lady of the Annunciation.
Okay.
VFW.
That's it.
Yeah, VFW Parkway.
We're going to have our phone numbers available, so if you have a problem, you'll be able to talk to me and probably and Mike.
Yeah, part of our construction management plan is we're going to secure a telephone number that we can post on the site fencing. It'll be much like calling your doctor's office. If it's an emergency, you'll get to one. It'll likely be an answering service that we will check on a daily basis, but they'll know, they'll have experience with this kind of thing, and they'll know what's an emergency or not, and when they have to get Mike and I out of bed.
I might not answer contractors, but I do answer
My name is Andre. I live nearby. So the question is, what are the chances the project will be over expected time limit and over expected budget?
It's not going to be over budget.
me answer that question. We have the town building department has a track record of bringing projects, for the most part, on budget and on schedule. And we hired the construction manager early so he can fully understand the problems that we're facing on this project. And we're trying to work through those problems. So when you better understand the problem, you know the resources you can apply to the project. So right now, I don't anticipate this project going over budget or over schedule. But we're on a very tight, we're in a very tight construction market, and that's one of the issues facing this labor.
Other questions? Going? Oh, got somebody. Oh.
Hi, I have a question. Yes, my name is Elisa Rigrajo. I live on Country Hill. I'm wondering about summer programs for kids in all of the surrounding buildings and the Viking Sports Camp Center on the field. They're launching the last week of June. I was thinking about what I'm doing for my son this summer, and I'm thinking I might not want to be in that location. So I'm just curious what's going to happen.
So two answers. The programming is typically held in the main building for the high school. Will not be there. It will be some combination of Coolidge. Right. I'm not speaking of Viking Camp.
Adult Education, the Smart Summers program.
Yes, that will be relocated because of the work that needs to be done this summer in the high school to prepare for the construction. Power will be off and on, so the entirety of summer programs will be moved. Most of them will land at Coolidge, but not all. We're using Lawrence for some others. And that communication, as that's finalized, will come out where everything will be.
The easiest is that any program run by the public school district line that is run at the high school will not be at the high school for the next 2 summers. It's our decision. Recreation has other programs they will be using that pool for. That's their decision. You can check with them about what they will be scheduling and not scheduling, and we are more than happy to work with them and include them in a summer partnership meeting that happens all year during the year to plan out spaces so that we can keep kids off of the site for construction. But we should check with recreation on what their plans are for their programs. But the public schools we're going, we are not on the high school campus, including the high school summer classes, boards that are also not on the high school campus, and move everything on.
So it's for Viking is what you're saying.
Well, so some of Viking will be run on the field and in Tappan, and I think depending on the phase of construction and the plans. What Mary Ellen's saying is that the rec and the Viking program has their own plans, and we are open and willing and will work with Viking on alternate locations on an as-needed basis, because we obviously during the construction project we give priority in any gym rental spaces to that critical rec program, right? That would be a top priority. So that's still I don't have the answers, and Mary Ellen doesn't have all the specifics for the rec program. So we can get that and help distribute it. And if you want the answer more immediately, just reach out tomorrow at rec.
And it was decided at the meeting earlier this afternoon. We had indicated work in Tappan this summer as kind of a wish list. If there was something that we could procure and execute, we were going to try and do that. It's turned out that we're not going to have that ability. So we won't affect Tappan this year. I can't speak to where they have plans to have their operations, but I would guess that they would continue their operations as planned for this summer. It's the following 2 summers where we're in discussions with them about shutting the building down for a period of time. Definitely in the summer of 2020, and potentially with the pool work and the lobby work the summer of 2021.
That's what we discussed already. We're not impacted for the most part of the operations this summer, but the next 2 summers later on, the operations probably will be impacted. So we're still discussing with Brad and just exactly what's going to happen while we're construction.
Hi, Karen Sue Blattman. I have an incoming freshman. I was just interested in hearing a little bit about the health impacts of the demolition that's going to happen kind of at the beginning of the school year.
the health impacts prior to the
So, as we're demoing the building where we've got dust control measures in place, really the biggest hazard we see to the public is creating a big dust plume, which we don't want to do, we won't do. So we'll have dust control measures in place to control the dust. The debris, like I said before, when we set up the demo of the building, we're going to work from the Tappan Street side, sort of pull all the demolition material towards Tappan Street, pile it up there. So between that and the dust control, we'll have in place. Our construction plan, once we get our demo subcontract plan, we'll come up with a sequence plan and a plan to show exactly how the building is going to come down and what sequence.
And our first line of defense is going to be water to prevent fugitive dust. The equipment that Mike mentioned earlier is actually pretty sophisticated. The long reach arms, you'll see them with fire hoses on the end of the arms, so they're introducing water where they're munching the building to start to capture that dust as it starts to occur, and then they'll introduce whether there's men on the ground with fire hoses, sometimes in lifts with fire hoses. Depending on who we hire for the job, we may see folks with snowmaking machines blowing water, but the intent is to get it wet and get it on the ground before it has an opportunity to get windborne or anywhere outside of our project fence.
That's not bad. You had also said that you were doing, like you do kind of environmental, I don't know, monitoring. Yeah, do you want to talk about that? And then what happens if, where are these monitors and what happens if they get off?
Sure. We typically during the interior construction and the exterior, depending on what activities, we set up monitoring stations, which are remote monitors, and they record air quality. And basically what that does is it gives us a sample of what the air quality is. We use systems, I haven't before, but Beat might have, where we actually have that system logged into our iPhone, so if that system senses something that's larger than the threshold for dust, if you will, it'll send us an alert on our iPhone that, okay, station 3 has a high level of dust, and we would respond to that and take care of whatever's creating the dust. In an interior environment, inside the building, as we're into some of the demolition activities, we'll do the same thing. We'll have monitors outside the walls, outside the partitions, so that if for some strange reason some dust migrates outside of the partition, we'll be able to respond and get things cleaned up. Our partitions are not going to be just regular low-height partitions. They're going to be full-height partitions, fully secured, taped, tight of wall, so that no dust will migrate out beyond the partitions. But our monitoring would be remote monitoring stations for dust control.
I'm trying to remember because we live across the street from the STEM building where Robert's building, and this is our second time going to a high school construction project. Is there asbestos in the Robert's building? Would that get taken care of in the last construction project?
There is still some asbestos in the Roberts right now, which will be part of our summer program. Before we knock the building down, the building will be clean. So we will get abated before we knock the building. Yes. And that program is set up, we'll have hygienists in there just like any other abatement program. If we have to, we'll contain areas, depending on what the material is and what the level of hazard is. We'll set up containment, negative air, wash down areas. The hygienist comes in and they'll sample the air to make sure that the air is clean before we take the compartments down. So there's a whole set of protocols and sequence when we get into the abatement. We make sure that our subcontractors follow and make sure we have clean before we move it.
Okay. Unless there are any other really burning questions, yes.
So the one thing you haven't talked about, Cypress Field is going to be close to this too. I think the architects have been working with the lands. I'm on the Cypress Field committee, and I'm also on the school committee. How is that going to work with the rest of this?
So, as we put our plans together, we're cognizant of that project. We're a little bit ahead of that project.
Yeah.
And we have to make plans and move forward. As that project moves forward, much like the designers will integrate their work, we'll work with the town and the contractor that's selected on that project to make sure that that we integrate. We're lucky because we're in first, and they get to see what we've proposed and what's been decided at meetings like this, and hopefully it works for them. But Mike and I are accustomed to working with other contractors, and we get along great in the sandbox, and we'll make sure that it's successful.
Great, thank you.
Be clear, we wanted to make sure when we did the grand opening for the building, that the park as well opened up at the same time.
That was my understanding that there were going to be.
We're trying to make that work, and we will make it work.
To be clear, though, we have no work as part of our project on the field. We surround it a little bit.
Trucks would be moving at the same
Yeah, there's
time.
going to be more traffic to be cognizant of. I was thinking, as Mike was talking about the muster points, we'll have to adjust things like that. We're not going to be able to dump people out if that's under construction. We're going to look to create a temporary path on the corner of the field closest to STEM, so that much like the barriers that Mike showed on the corner of Sumner and Tappan, we know what human nature is, and we're going to direct folks kind of away from that corner to make sure that they stay on the field side of Tappan. It's going to be the streetscapes project, and when we have a lane closed on Tappan, then I think we'll have to do the heaviest coordination to make sure we're both not trying to take lanes at the same time and pinch that street down.
Right.
Okay, do you guys have anything else you'd like to add to about construction? Because we need to move on.
So I need the committee members to get a calendar so we can figure out a date when it's convened. Now, the school vacation is going to be April 22nd. So a month from now, it's actually work. After you reach for this after. Will you guys have enough events to inform us about on April 17th?
So I just want to say one other thing, which is that we are potentially, I want to make sure we're looking at Mondays also. Wednesdays is really hard for a lot of people. And so,
Actually, am I wrong?
School vacation week starts on the 15th.
15th. Okay, so I am. Okay, so within the could work, it could be the 22nd or the 24th.
It really needs to be the 22nd, because there's a big gala event.
24th is the test.
24th, so it's for sepsis test.
Oh,
A number of us will be,
That's the 22nd.
That's the 24th. That's Wednesday, the
So we have to do the 22nd.
22nd, it's a little tight for me, but I could do it at 7, I'll probably be a little late, 7:30. Is that enough time? Okay, so why don't we schedule it for 7 on,
Monday, April 22nd. Yes. I think there are a couple things that we probably need to do between now and then. I mean, one is just, can we affirm that this presentation will get posted before the weekend? Let's see, the next couple days, yes. Mike is not a yes, so yes. The second thing is, I think it would be helpful for that email to just go out to everybody who signed up. A lot of people have signed up for the high school alert, so when it's up, just let people know that it's up. I think that between now and then we should, if at all possible, and I may know the day, just try to get to the faculty. It may not be possible, but there's so much here, I would hate to you just tell us how to do it, right?
We have a faculty meeting second week of April. It's an idea.
Just at some point, somehow in the next month. Even if it's just emailing them and having, drop in hour for questions. I don't know how you would do it, but I worry about this getting too far.
No, I think that's great. I think Mike does a really nice job with it, so we'll figure that out. I don't imagine it being during the faculty meeting, but I like the idea of a drop-in. So Cal will be in touch about next steps to inform faculty. Thank you.
Is there a clear email? There's a form on the website as to where if you have questions or feedback or whatever, it's up there. Okay, so we'll make sure that that's there also. I just want to make sure we can get in as much feedback as possible, because when people start looking at this and can read it, they're going to have questions on it. Okay.
Can you tell the audience what the address of the website is in case somebody doesn't know?
It's on the homepage, right? So if you go to the homepage, if you go to the Brookline Public Schools homepage and you click on capital projects, I think. Oh, yeah, pull it up. Yeah. Or you can click on the giant picture of BHS.
I don't think so. I don't think I have web access 3 years.
Do you want to plug it in?
Sure. Yeah. You have a newer model.
Okay, it's www.pbs.
Brookline.k12.ma.us. And then there's a quick link on the right of the screen that says BHS expansion and renovation.
It might be helpful actually to send out a small email and have a notice that this is where you're getting from. I think that might be the easiest thing. And just list the website and give people instructions. So at least, is everybody here giving us your email and signed in? Okay, so at least those of you who are most eager will get the information.
I would also say if there are any neighborhood associations, people like I know Emerson Garden list, I know there's you have the Brington list, like there are different lists out there. So if there are other lists that we should know about, happy to post to those as well.
High Street Village.
High Street. We haven't even talked about I will just note this because otherwise I'm gonna get kicked by George, but like there's a whole other hour and a half on the old Lincoln School use. That's mostly of interest to 9th grade families, but not exclusively because it's all and teachers, of course, but it's also of interest to the people who are around that building. So on the Emerson Garden side and on the Walnut side. So there's presentations on the website. There'll be more meetings about that as well as that unfolds and parking plans and all that sort of thing forward. So if you have questions about that, ask as well.
Okay, we're done. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is that for me?
I think it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm going to take those boards. Sorry. Yep. I'll organize.
We met at your office, Scott Langford.
That's right. How are you doing? Good. Good. I look at it, and I'm like, wait a minute. That's someone I didn't meet.
I can try.
It's not a neighbor. But I threw your name out as if the meeting right now. We'll start.
Okay.
I've never seen it.
Oh, he is? Okay, I noticed the whole walkway, the courtyard walkway, and then it's June 20th. Oh, or it's all tank.